Hi, I'm Tim. I am the Tinkering Turtle. Today we're going to outfit the Ride One Up Core 5. I've got a new seat, I've got new grips, I've got a new cell phone holder, and a couple other things I'll show you in just a second what I got. I spent about 200 bucks. I want to set this bike up so that my wife can ride it on alternate days, because this bike she likes because it gets her heart rate up a little bit and still gives her plenty of help to get up and over any obstacles. So I'm going to set this up so she can pick which one she wants to choose, either this one or her other bike. Her other bike's better for long distance. This only has a 10 amp hour battery, so if we're going down to the next town and back, that's almost 40 miles. She wants a little bit more battery to do that because there's a lot of ups and downs and hills and stuff. Anyway, without further ado, let me show you what we're going to put on. Okay, so here are the parts that we're going to be installing today. I've got a new cell phone holder. I've got an adjustable stem and riser that came with a couple Allen wrenches. I've got a bag I'm going to put on the handlebars so she can haul her stuff around, tools, bike locks, that kind of thing. I've got a nice set of lock-on leather grips in tan that I'm going to install. I've got a pearl white bike bell here, a new Zoom seat post with shim. Now the reason I got a shim is I always buy the seat post in 27.2 millimeters. That way if I ever want to put that seat post on another bike, I just have to pay for the less expensive shim for the new bike. I also have a Cloud9 tan cushion support seat that I'll be putting on as well. The tools I'll need for today are probably just going to be Allen wrenches and a Phillips screwdriver. The Phillips screwdrivers for the bell. Everything else should be able to be put on with the Allen wrenches. Now we're going to break this down into two steps. The first step is going to be adjusting the handlebars. That's putting on the riser and adjustable stem, the bell, the cell phone holder, the new grips. That's one part of it. So that should raise the handlebars up and get all the other accoutrements on here that we want. The luggage bag will fit right under here. The second part is going to be the seat. We'll put in the suspension seat post and the seat, and I'll show you how to level that and adjust it up and down. And then this will be all set up for her to take for a ride. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is remove the handlebars from the bike so we can add the riser and replace the fixed stem with an adjustable stem. To do this, I have a 4 and a 5 millimeter hex wrench or Allen wrench. So we're going to remove these 4 bolts. We're going to loosen the 2 bolts on the stem here, and then we're going to remove the top bolt. Once you remove the four bolts, the front bracket comes off. You can pull the handlebars out and lay them down to the side so they don't get damaged. Be careful. And then I'm going to loose fit the bracket back on so I don't lose it. I don't want to lose the bolts or the bracket in case I ever need this stem again. Now that I've got the handlebar removed, I'm going to loosen the 2 bolts on the back of the stem, one coming from this direction, one coming from this direction. I don't need to pull these all the way out. I just need to loosen them up about a turn. And that releases the clamp pressure so I can slide it up and off once I remove the top bolt. The top bolt simply unscrews and the top bolt comes out with the cap. Once that's removed, then you should be able to just slide the fixed stem up and off the stem of the bike. Now measuring the stem, it's a 1 1/8 inch stem. Measuring the handlebars, it's a 1 1/4 inch handlebar. So this is a pretty standard fixed stem that or adjustable stem that you're gonna need. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is put the riser on the stem here. Now keep in mind that now that I have everything off the stem, if I were to lift the frame up, the forks would literally fall out of the bike. So be careful when you're doing this. If you put it up in a stand, you're going to need to put a strap holding the forks up into the head tube. So The way this works is I always remove one of the spacers and push it down, and then I'll remove the other spacer. And this is what you want to see right here when you remove the spacers. You don't want this piece to bottom out on the top of the stem like this. So I'm looking in here, and I can definitely see that when it's bottomed out, this one spacer doesn't give me any additional space. I need it about 1/8 of an inch up. So I'm going to need to put in one, maybe this spacer two. That way, when I put these spacers on and I slide this down, then I know that this top surface is not bottoming out on the lip inside, because you need it to create a compression to pull the fork up through the bike. So now once you do that, you just slide it on. Okay, so now that you've got this on there, you've tested your spacing, so you know that the top of the thread or non-threaded stem isn't bottoming out on your riser. You're going to want to loose fit your adjustable stem on there. And the first thing I'm going to do before I do that is I'm going to raise the stem up. That takes a 5mm Allen wrench, loosen the bolt on the side, and then you can change the angle and retighten the bolt. I'm going to raise it all the way up for now. I just want to make sure that it's in a detented area. Tighten that down nice and tight. That way when I put it on, you have to loosen the side bolts. And the side bolts on the new stem are 4mm. Or maybe not, maybe they're 5. Doesn't come down far enough. Okay, so what I'm seeing here is that this is the top. This here is the top of the riser, this ring, and you want the stem to be about 1/8 of an inch above that. Obviously, when I move that other washer down to here, then it kind of created an imbalance. So what I think I'm going to do is put the original 2 spacers back and put that on there. That still should tighten good around the thread or the threadless stem. And then I'm going to take this small spacer and put it back on there. That way when I put this on, you can see now, if you're looking down in here, that the top of the riser is at least 1/8 of an inch down inside. And that's important because when I put the top bolt in and tighten it up, then it'll pull the fork up into the head tube and create the compression that is required to keep the head tube assembly stationary or stable. So here you can see a little better picture. This is the top of the riser, and it's sub-flush of the top surface of the stem, because now what the top bolt's going to do is the top bolt, when it comes down, will sit on this surface here and pull the fork up to compress the whole assembly between the two. So I'm going to go ahead and put the top bolt in. Now these are Wake brand components. You don't need Wake. There's a lot of components that do very similar things. But I've used Wake in the past and I like it. So here's the thing about the stem assembly, and I say this in every video, so you gotta listen to this. Do not over tighten the top bolt. The only thing the top bolt does is adjust the tension from the fork through the head tube and take up any slack so there's no wobble in the system. That's all that does. If you over tighten it, inside the threadless stem is a nut that's compressed into the tube, and you will pull that out and basically damage the system. So don't over tighten the top bolt. The top bolt is not to align the riser and stem with the wheel. The top bolt sets the compression through the whole assembly. Then to align the components with the wheel, you'll tighten down these side bolts. And that compresses it onto the adjustable stem onto the riser, and the riser onto the threadless tube, the threadless stem. So I'm just going to kind of gently line everything up right now. That'll have to be redone. I'm going to tighten the top bolt up just a little bit. Now to test it, I'm going to lift the bike and I'm going to grab the forks and move it around. If I can feel a wiggle, which I can, then I tighten it up a little bit more and try to get that wiggle out because I want it to turn smoothly. I want it to turn smoothly in the head tube, but I don't want there to be any wobble. See, now there's no wobble in the fork through the head tube, and it still turns really smoothly. And that's what I want. And I will double check that once I get the handlebars up into the stem. So now that I've got the top bolt snug down, I'm going to remove the front bracket and put the handlebars back up here. So I'm just going to remove the 4 bolts from the bracket, the handlebar bracket. The handlebar bracket comes off. I'm going to get the handlebar. I'll loose fit that back up into the stem and then start the bolts. Now one thing I want to point out here is you can see in here that you have a gap between the bracket and the stem, and that gap here should be the same as on this side. The gap should be the same. And when you tighten these down, you want the gap here and here to be fairly similar so you get even clamping pressure on the handlebars. Now the way I tighten down the handlebars is I make sure that it's centered and these are slightly off, and then I will get the level of the grips the way I want them, and then I will tighten down one of the bolts on each diagonally just to hold the handlebar in place. Now when you're tightening these down, because you want the gap on the front and back to be the same, you'll tighten them down in a pattern. So this one diagonal, and then as you tighten, you keep doing that to keep even pressure on the top plate to the handlebar. Again, switching to the other one and then going diagonally. And I'll just slowly give these a half a turn or so each time until I get a good snug fit. Again, alternating and going diagonally. Keep in mind these are aluminum parts, so you don't want to over tighten them, but you do want them good and snug. And that is good and tight. I'm going to lift the bike up. Yep, the forks, nothing's moving. That's a good shape. Now I'm going to want to stand over the bike. And you can either stand over the front wheel or the back wheel. And you're going to want to line up the handlebars and the components to the front wheel. And that looks good. Now I'm going to go through and snug down these 4 bolts and lock that into place so that the handlebars are lined up with the front wheel. Now the riser in this case is a 4mm, but the stem is a 5. So once I get them snug down, I'm gonna take a look, make sure that everything's still lined up, and then I'm gonna continue tightening down these 4 bolts until I get them all tight. And again, I'm a big fan of alternating, doing a half turn on each one just to get even pressure. So the top is tight, that's the adjustable stem onto the riser. And then I'm going to switch bolts or Allen wrenches, and I'm going to finish tightening down the riser onto the adjustable or the threadless stem. And again, I just do about a half turn, alternating between the top and the bottom. And that's good and tight. Now you can see when I lift the bike from the frame and I turn, everything turns smoothly. I am getting a little bit of resistance from the front brake. Not too bad though. No, that's not it. I am getting some resistance from the wrapped cord. So what you do now is to test it, you're going to want to turn your bike side to side and make sure none of the cords are binding. I can see that when I turn it this way, this is wrapped pretty tightly. So I think I'm going to unwrap these and see if I can loosen that up a little bit, just so I don't get that binding when I turn to the right. Before I do that, one thing I want to show is it comes with this little rubber cap, and where that rubber cap goes is right in this top bolt, just to give it a more finished look, and it just presses in. So So it looks like this one's wrapped all the way up this side, and then this one is a separate wrapping. That's what it looks like. So to unwrap it, you start with this side. Now these wrappings are nice, but they're not required. It just keeps these nice and bundled so they look better. But one thing I definitely want to do is make sure that I have enough of this stuff sticking out where it doesn't bind when I turn. Even when I'm just walking the bike and doing a tight turn, I don't want to be pulling on wires because I could pull a connector loose and I don't want to do that. So now that I've unwrapped a little bit past this one, I can see that I can turn about 90 degrees, which is more than enough. Now I could unwrap it all the way and see if I can pull more wire out of the tube, but I don't think that's necessary. So instead of wrapping this up again, I'm going to jump inside of it and wrap. That way this extra looseness that I got, now I'm not pulling on these wires when I turn. And I think that's going to be good enough. So I'm just going to wrap this side back up again. At this point, I think I'm going to drop the shifter cable out and just wrap the brake and sensor cable. Always check when you're done to make sure that what you meant to do was happening, and that looks good. So that completes the installation of the riser and the adjustable stem. I've adjusted the wire so I have a little bit of extra movement. The brake cable seems fine even with the extra height. So that should do it for that. Now we're going to move on to the grips and the other components that go on the handlebars. Okay, I'm going to start by removing the mirror that I put in. I did a video earlier that I'll link in the description of the video that I put the mirror in and I moved the thumb throttle from the left to the right, which is my preference. So I'm going to take the mirror out of the way so I can get to the handles. These are Hafni bar end mirrors. I love these mirrors. And you just loosen the bolt and they slide right out, and I'll set that aside. Now if you've watched the other video, about taking these handles off, how you do it is you hold here, you take a hold of the grip and you twist and you pull. And it's not easy, it's hard. That's why I don't tend to like these, because they tend to, as you ride, they rotate around the handlebar and they're hard to move and adjust when you need them to. So I want to get these off and put on these stylish ergonomic lock-on grips. These slide right on and then you just tighten down the bolts and they stay in place. I really prefer these, so I try to change them out on most of my bikes. I don't want to struggle with these getting them off, and since I'm not going to use them again, I'm going to just cut them off. Be careful doing this so you don't cut yourself. But it's just that easy. Again, don't put your hand here and do this way, because then you have a chance of hitting your hand. Make sure your hand's out of the way when you cut stuff like this. And that takes everything right off. The grips are ruined, but they're easy to take off that way. Okay, to put the new ones on, you got the logo. You can either put them down or you can put the logos up. I'm going to go ahead and put the logos up. Okay, you're going to want to loosen the hex bolts on here, and then it should just slide right on. Now you're going to see over here that the end cap is still down inside. So that means I'm going to have to shift all this stuff over to get that to slide on all the way. I'm going to loosen the shifter. That allows that to move. Loosen up the thumb throttle. Slide that over. Loosen up the brake handle. Slide that over. And I'm going to slide the grip until the end is flush with the little plastic cap that's in there. Then I want to simulate sitting on the bike and get it rotated so that the ergonomic part is in the right place, or sits comfortable. So right there, and then I'm going to tighten up the two bolts. Now these come with two different size Allen wrenches. You got the 4 out here, and then I think it's a 3 or a 2.5 in here. And once these are tightened down, then they simply won't turn and rotate on the handlebars, and I like that. So now they will not turn because they're bolted on and they're not going to move. Now you're going to want to rotate, push everything back up against the grip. You're going to rotate the handle, the brake handle, where it matches the other side of the bike so it feels comfortable. Hold it in place and then snug down that bolt. This is the good part about doing one at a time, because then you can feel the other side for reference. That's a good angle on the brake to pull at a natural level. Now I've said this before on the throttle, you slide it up against the brake handle, but I like the thumb throttle down at about 45 degrees. That way when it comes all the way down, you're basically down about the bottom. So I want it right about there. So again, hold it in place, then use your Allen wrench to tighten it up. It's not super critical. I just like it at about a 45-degree angle. That seems to work really well. You can make minor adjustments as you go to get it in a more comfortable position for you. That's just a starting point. And then tighten it down. Now it won't move. And the last thing, pull the shifter, make sure it's around horizontal, and then tighten that up so that that doesn't move. Now that you've got everything set, you're going to want to come over here, feel the brake, the shifter, see how it feels. Everything looks good. This side's done. Slide on the grips. I'm just a little bit subflush. I'm going to grab the mirror real quick and slide it in and see if that's taken up, and it is. So I think I'm not going to need to adjust the brake handle on this side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to straddle the bike and hold the grips and make sure that they're the same on both sides. Otherwise it feels funny, and then I'll snug them up. Once you get them to where the ergonomic part is correct, then you just tighten them down. Now they're nice and firm and they're not going anywhere, and they got the nice brown leather, which I like. Okay, the next thing I want to install is the bell. You're going to sit on the handlebar like this so you can do that. But here's the thing, is I need to do it with my thumb and the display's in the way, so I'm going to loosen the display, slide it over, and put the bell in its place. You take a 2.5mm hex wrench, loosen the bracket on the screen, slide that around the corner a little bit. I'm going to leave that loose for the moment. Put the bell on, and then I'm going to take the bracket for the bottom and put up under the handlebar and start the screws. This would be a similar situation to the handlebar bracket, where you want the gaps on either side to be similar so you get good compression on the handlebar. You're just starting the two bolts. Get them started. You can use a screwdriver. And I'm going to want to raise it up into a position where I think it's going to be. And I'm going to snug the bolts down, give it a little bit of tension. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to see if it's where I want. I'm going to rotate it a little bit. Now I'm in a good position. Now that I know that's where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and tighten down the two bolts. And this is a Phillips head screwdriver, in case you were wondering. Again, you're trying to get both sides tightened down so the gaps are pretty even. That gives you a good clamping pressure on the handlebar, and just get it to a point where it won't move. Once you have that in place, you're going to want a slight gap for the screen, 1/8 of an inch or better, and go ahead and tighten that back down, because you don't want the screen to be touching the bell, otherwise it won't ring, it'll just go thud, thud, thud. So I got about 1/8 of an inch gap in there. I'm going to rotate the screen a little bit, tighten that down. Screen's tight, the bell's tight, new grips are on. The only thing left to do is to replace the mirror. And these are, I think this one's not the Hafni, but this is the Hafni style. And I really like these mirrors. They're easily adjustable for going through doors. They're on the left side of the bike, so you can move them around fairly easy, up and down, in and out, and you can do that on the fly. So if they get hit, you can just move them. You don't have to have a tool necessarily to adjust them on the road. And then what they do is they've got a piece in here that expands as you tighten it, so they hold on to the handlebar. And you just tighten that down a little bit, and then this is solid. You've got a nice mirror on your bike so you can see what's coming behind you. I think these are an essential piece of safety equipment, similar to helmets, because you don't want to be turning your head when you're riding down the road, because as you turn, you tend to turn your bike that way, and that's dangerous. So have a mirror that'll give you a good picture of what's behind you. That way you won't be turning your head to see what's coming, and you'll be a lot safer. Safety equipment is important on a bike. You should wear a helmet, you should have a mirror. It is a very big thing. All right, let's move on to the next thing. Now you're gonna notice I'm wearing a different shirt. It's because I went in, I started editing the video, and I found that I forgot to hit record when I was doing the cell phone holder. So I was gonna do a quick thing, and instead of pulling it off and reinstalling it, I'm just gonna go over the features of the cell phone holder. So this is the cell phone holder that we like, and we have them on all our bikes. And what it is you put the phone in and it hits this button, and it clamps down around each corner. When you want to take it out, you just squeeze these two tabs in and grab the phone so you can take it out and put it in with one hand. It's kind of nice. Now the other thing I like about this is it's got the C shape that you can just spread these apart and slide it over the handlebar, so you don't have to take off everything to get it on. And it's got an adjustment and a ball set up here, so you can adjust the orientation, you can turn it sideways, you can carry it any way you like. The other thing I wanted to point out is that sometimes these will, when they hit bumps, these will slide down and around the handlebar. What I do is I take a little double-sided tape and I put underneath the clamp, and then I clamp it on, and then these things are rock solid, they don't move. So that's the cell phone holder. Sorry I didn't get the video to show me assembling it, but that's the break sometimes. So the last thing for the handlebars, we're going to put a luggage bag on. Slide it under here, slide the leather straps up and over, and they're just buckles. If you can buckle a belt, you can buckle this on. And we did this because I didn't want to find a rear rack for the bike, and I figured this would be a good compromise. Give her some area where she can just unzip this. She's got room to put stuff inside and then zip it back up. She can put her bike lock in here, maybe a little, she carries a little medical pack, so if we get in a wreck and got scrapes and bruises, she can put that in here. And the rest of the stuff I can carry on my bag on the rear rack. But this bike won't have a rear rack. It will only have this, because this is not going to be her long distance rider. She's going to have the other bike for that. This will be her around town at night, go to the beach after dinner type bike. And so we're just putting a smaller pack on it for now. And if that doesn't work out, then I can find a rear rack for it, and she can put her pannier bag on back there. So that's just something we're doing for now. We're going to try it out and see if it works. I really like it. It's a nice little leather bag with a nice zipper, and you can put stuff in and out of it pretty easy. And it's big enough to carry a little bit without being so big that it overwhelms the front of the bike. Okay, the last thing we're going to work on is the suspension seat post and the seat. We're going to take off any packaging. The seat post is a Zoom seat post. You do have an adjustment on the bottom that you can tighten up to get the tension for the shock absorption down properly. So the forward part of the bike would be going this direction, and that gets the rake of the mount to keep the seat flat. And when you put the seat on, what you really want is you want your seat to be flat to the world, and then you'll adjust this up and down to fit your leg length. So I've got the Zoom suspension seat post. I've got a shim that just slides over it. This brings it up to the 31.6 that the Ride 1 Up has. And it allows me in the future, here's the reason I always do this. I always buy the 27.2 millimeter version of the seat posts. And the reason I do that, if I ever want to take this out of the Ride 1 Up Core 5 and put it in another bike, then all I have to do is have a shim, which is a lot cheaper than the seat post. The seat post, I want to say it was $30, maybe 40, I'm not sure. But the shim's 10 bucks. And so I can put this seat post in pretty much any bike that has a, different size seat post just by getting the appropriate shim. So that's why I do it this way. it's kind of one of those things that staves off future purchases. Okay, all new seats come with this attachment. This is for a post that comes up through. As you can see, we don't have a post. It's a different type of mount. So we're going to want to take that off. So now I just set that aside. Okay, these are 5mm hex bolts. So I'm going to loosen those up. It's the 2 hex bolts on the bottom. I got lock nuts in there, so the initial couple turns are a little bit tough. Okay, one of these, you got the 2 bolts. One of them I'm going to take out and then see if I can get it on the bars with that 1 bolt removed. There's your lock nut, don't lose that. So the front of the bike's going to be this way. I'm going to rotate this. I'll loosen up that bolt a little bit more. And I'm going to rotate this piece underneath the bar. And I'm going to put the other bolt. This is a 5, I think I told you it was 5mm hex. And don't tighten these up right now because you're going to need to adjust the angle of the bar to the seat once you put it on the bike, and we're going to go do that right now. Okay, now to take the seat out, you simply open the cam, slide this up and out. This is the original seat and seat post. We won't be using this. Then you will slide the new post and shim down inside. Now, one thing we want to do before we tighten up the bolts, the 2 bolts on the seat post, is we want to sit this up so that the bike is straight up and down, and then we're going to want to adjust the seat so it's level to the ground. If you don't have a level, then just do it by eye. That's going to be close enough. But most of the people I've seen talking about this stuff online say that you should start with the seat level to the ground and then move it up and down. And then if you need to adjust it nose down or nose up from there for your comfort, that's fine. But most people, level is where you want to be. So I'm going to loosen up the 2 bolts underneath a little bit. To do this, I'm going to slide. To make this easier for me, I'm going to slide the seat up for now and cam lock it in place. That way it's up a little higher and you guys can see what I'm doing, hopefully. So I'm going to loosen up that bolt. That allows me to rotate the seat so that it's horizontal. And once you get the bubble centered, that's horizontal to the world, then you'll snug those 2 bolts down and it should lock that orientation in. Now the other adjustment you can make is, being you're on 2 bars underneath, you can slide the seat forward and back so that she or you can reach the handles, grips easier. That has to be done after you ride it a little bit. So go ahead and tighten it down for now in a horizontal position, and then if you need to, loosen the bolts, and then you can slide the seat forward or back to get the fit to where you want it. One last check. That looks good. And then tighten the 2 bolts down all the way. Again, if you need to loosen it up to slide the seat forward, just be careful not to change the horizontal seat later. And all I'm doing here is tightening down those 2 bolts on the suspension seat post. So the other adjustment you have is on the bottom of the seat post. There's a tension spring to allow how much effort it takes to drop the seat down. As you can see, this compresses with my weight. I think that's in a pretty good spot for now, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that. I'll also loosen this and line it up with the frame. Now, I do show this in other videos, but I'm going to show it in this one too. To properly adjust your seat height, you put your heel on the pedal at the bottom of its stroke down there. You sit on the seat, and if your leg is straight, that way when you pull your foot back to be on the ball of the foot, you'll have a slight bend in your leg, and that's where the seat height wants to be. So this is too tall because I can't get on the seat. So I'll make an adjustment down. So my heel's on the pedal at the bottom of the stroke, my butt is on the seat, my leg's straight. Now if I pull the ball of my foot back to the pedal, you can see my leg has a slight bend. That's what you want to be seeing for your seat height. So that's the outfitting of my Ride One Up Core 5. I've got the nice brown leather seat and grips. I've got the nice rack on the front. I got a bell, a mirror, a cell phone holder. This is ready for her to ride. What I'm going to do is run downstairs and grab the battery and put into it, and then I'll get her out here and put her on it, maybe take some video of her riding around, get the seat adjusted for her, not for me, and see what she thinks about it. Let's go. Double check, make sure everything turns on. Now you notice how upright she's going to be sitting on the bike. Nice, comfortable riding position. So we're done adding all the extras onto the bike. We've done the grips, the cell phone holder, the new bell, the big seat. What did you think of the big Cloud9 seat?
Yeah, it worked out good. It was very comfortable.
And how's the seating position on it? A lot of pressure on your hand, a little bit?
I felt nice and upright, no pressure on my hands.
Okay. So that's it for today. The bike's all set up. My wife's ready to ride this wherever she wants. And we're going to get it out and run it around Holland over the next few days and see how she likes it. Thanks for watching. All the components that I've used today will be listed. All the Amazon links will be in the description of the video. If you have any questions, leave me a comment and like the video. It helps my channel out, gets it out to more people, so more people can see how to upgrade your bike and how easy it is to do. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.